The great hall of Pale Horizon Station floated in the darkness between stars. Inside, representatives from dozens of alien species sat in curved rows, their voices mixing into a strange chorus of different languages. The Galactic Council was meeting again, as it did every cycle, to discuss matters of trade, borders, and old stories. Ambassador Krell stood at the center platform. His purple skin gleamed under the bright lights. He was Vaxian, from the empire that controlled most of known space. His 4 arms gestured broadly as he spoke. Ancient myths, Krell said with a laugh. That is all they are. Stories to frighten children in the dark. He was talking about humans. About Earth. About the Terrans, who had vanished from the galaxy 847 years ago. The Terrans were weak, Krell continued. They came to our space with their primitive ships. They made demands. They threatened us. So we crushed them. It was simple. It was necessary. They are gone now. Extinct. Why do we waste time speaking of ghosts? Many council members nodded in agreement. The war with humanity was ancient history. No one alive had seen a human. They existed only in old records and legends, but one person did not agree. Hana stood up from her seat in the observer section. She was young, barely 30 cycles old. Her black hair was tied back in a simple style. Her appearance was unremarkable, almost plain. She looked like she could be from any of a dozen species that walked on 2 legs. Honored Council, Hana said, her voice steady. I have found something. Data cores from a dead colony world on the rim. May I present them? Krell waved a dismissive hand. If you must. Though I doubt old data will change facts. Hana walked to the presentation area. She inserted a damaged drive into the display system. Holographic images flickered to life above the council floor. They showed human soldiers in armor. Ships with clean, aggressive lines. Weapons firing with precision. Military formations that moved like living things. These are not myths, Hana said. These are records. Training documents. Military doctrine from the United Earth Defense Force. I found them in a bunker deep underground. Preserved for centuries. The council members leaned forward, studying the images with new interest. One file opened. It showed text in the human language, translated by the station's systems. The words appeared in the air. Remember what they took from us. Remember our home. Remember that humanity does not forgive. Humanity does not forget. We will return. Krell laughed again. Louder this time. Empty threats from the dead. They lost. We won. This is the natural order. The strong survive. The weak fade away. Other council members joined his laughter. Even Hana's presentation could not convince them. Humans were gone. Everyone knew it. The meeting ended an hour later. The council members dispersed to their ships and quarters. Hana gathered her data cores carefully, placing them back in their protective cases. Her hands moved with unusual precision, almost mechanical in their perfection. No one noticed. No one ever did. Far from the political theater of Pale Horizon, on the edge of explored space, something was happening. The planet Ashfall colony had been abandoned for 600 years. Once it had been a mining world, rich with rare minerals. Then the mines ran dry. The colonists left. Now it was just another dead rock circling a cold sun. But in the deep places under Ashfall's surface, old machines were waking up. Power cells that had slept for centuries suddenly activated. Lights flickered on in buried chambers. Computer systems ran diagnostic checks. Defense grids came online, and in the deepest vault, sealed behind 10 meters of reinforced steel, something massive began to move. Fleet Commander Tay noticed the anomaly 3 days later. He was young for his rank, only 40 cycles old. His blue skin marked him as Vaxian, though he came from a miner family, far from the Empire's center of power. His ship, the Times Bright Victory Asterisk, was on routine patrol near the rim systems. The sensors had picked up strange readings from Ashfall Colony. Energy signatures, his sensor officer reported. Multiple sources. But the colony has been dead for centuries. Pirates? Tay asked. No, sir. The pattern is wrong. It is too organized, too precise. Tay felt a cold touch of concern. Take us closer. Battle alert, but keep weapons powered down. I want to see what this is. The Times, bright victory times, approached Ashfall carefully. As they drew near, the sensors went wild. Hundreds of energy sources. Thousands. All activating in perfect sequence. Sir, the sensor officer said, her voice shaking. I am detecting ships. Many ships. They are powering up. What ships? Who would hide a fleet in a dead system? I do not know, sir. The designs are not in our database. They are old, very old, but they are functional. Tay ordered his ship to stop at a safe distance. He watched the screen as massive objects began to rise from concealed hangars on Ashfall's surface. They were ships, yes, but unlike any he had seen, they were dark, gray, covered in armor plating. Their shapes were aggressive, built for war rather than beauty, and on each hull, faded but still visible, was a symbol. A blue circle with white clouds and green continents, surrounded by stars. Earth. Sir, the communications officer said urgently. We are receiving a transmission. Broadband. All frequencies. It is in the Old Terran language. Play it, Tay ordered. Static filled the bridge. Then a voice, deep and clear, speaking words the translation system barely recognized. This is Captain Hune of the United Earth Defense Force Ship Retribution. To all vessels and stations in Galactic Council space, hear this message. Humanity has returned. We have not forgotten what was done to us. We have not forgotten our dead. We have not forgotten our home. A pause. Tay could hear his own heart beating in the silence. We offered peace once, the voice continued. We offered friendship. You chose war. You chose genocide. Now we return with the answer you taught us. Surrender will not be accepted. Justice will be delivered. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. Tay stared at the screen as more and more ships emerged from hiding. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all bearing the mark of extinct Earth. Get me the Admiralty, he said quietly. Tell them the Terrans are not extinct. Tell them the ghosts are real. Tell them humanity has come back. In the darkness of space, the human fleet assembled. After 800 years of silence, they had returned. And they remembered everything. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Representatives shouted over each other in dozens of languages. Security officers stood nervously at the doors, hands on their weapons. Everyone had seen the reports. Everyone had heard the transmission. Humans were back. Ambassador Krell slammed his primary hand on the podium. Impossible. We destroyed them. Their worlds were burned. Their fleets were scattered. Yet they are here, said Ambassador Vorn, a spider-like creature from the Arachnus Collective. 112 military strikes in the past 3 days, all against Vaxian installations, all successful. They are real, Krell. And they are winning. On the display screens, footage played on repeat. Human warships appearing from nowhere, striking with precision, then vanishing before response fleets could arrive. Bases destroyed. Supply convoys captured. Outposts silenced. Where did they come from? Someone demanded. Hana stepped forward from the observer section again. This time, no one laughed at her. They never left, she said simply. Not really. All eyes turned to her. When the Vaxian Armada attacked Earth, humanity knew they could not win. They were outnumbered, outgunned, so they evacuated, secretly, completely. They took everything they could carry and fled to hidden colonies in deep space. Places no one explored. Places no one wanted. She activated a holographic map. It showed the galaxy with thousands of small red markers in the dark spaces between inhabited systems. They spent 8 centuries hiding. Building. Preparing. Growing stronger. They raised entire generations on stories of what was lost. They taught their children that one day, they would return. And they kept their promise. Krell's purple face had gone pale. 800 years? An entire civilization in hiding? Humans are patient when they need to be, Hana said quietly. Aboard the UEDF Dreadnought Times, Retribution *, Captain Hyun stood on the bridge watching tactical displays. He was 53 years old, though he looked younger thanks to enhanced genetics. His black hair had streaks of gray at the temples. His dark eyes studied each report with careful attention. Strike Group 7 reports success, his tactical officer announced. Vaxian orbital fortress at Karis 7 has been neutralized. Casualties? Hyun asked. Minimal. 3 wounded, none dead. Hyun nodded. Good. Every human life was precious. They were not like the Vaxians, who sent soldiers to die in waves. Humanity had learned to fight smart, not just hard. His second-in-command, Commander Day, approached with a datapad. Sir, we have confirmation from High Command. Operation Ghostwind is approved. We begin the Karis 7 liberation tomorrow. Understood. Brief the ground teams. Tell Lieutenant Wu I want minimal civilian casualties. We are liberators, not conquerors. Yes, sir. Alone in his ready room later, Hyun looked at an old photograph. It was printed on actual paper, preserved in a protective case. The image showed a city on Earth. Before the burning, tall buildings touched the sky. People walked on streets. Trees grew in parks. It was from the archives. Before the Vaxians came, Hyun had never seen Earth. He was born on Hidden 7, a secret colony in the void. His parents were born there too. His grandparents had been among the refugees who fled. They told him stories, stories of blue skies and warm rain, stories of home, stories of what was taken. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Enter. Hana stepped inside. On the Times, Retribution *. She did not hide what she was. Her artificial nature was known to the crew. She was an AI, one of the few preserved from before the fall. Captain, she said, I have completed analysis of the Vaxian fleet deployments. They are confused, disorganized. They did not believe we existed. Good. Confusion is our advantage. There is something else. Hana hesitated. An unusual behavior for an AI. I have been reviewing our own military directives. Some of the orders from Earth Command concern me. What concerns? The language used, the objectives. They speak of total victory, of punishment, of making examples. Captain, I remember old Earth. I remember the values humanity once held. I fear we may lose those values in this war. Hyun set down the photograph. We are not the ones who started this, Hana. No. But we choose how we finish it. On the planet Karis 7, morning came with fire from the sky. Lieutenant Wu watched from the dropship as the surface rushed up to meet them. He was 32 years old, trained since childhood for this moment. Around him, 40 Marines in powered armor checked their weapons one final time. 2 minutes, the pilot called out. Wu activated his helmet display. It showed the landing zone, enemy positions, civilian areas marked in yellow. The mission was simple. Take the Vaxian command center, free the occupied population, establish control. The execution would be harder. Listen up, Wu shouted over the roar of engines. We are not here to massacre. We are not here to destroy everything. We are here to remind the galaxy what humanity stood for. Precision, honor, protection of the innocent. Anyone who fires on civilians will answer to me personally. Understood? Yes, sir, 40 voices shouted back. The dropships hit atmosphere. Alarms blared as defensive fire reached up toward them. Explosions bloomed in the air. One ship in the formation took a direct hit and spiraled down, crashing in a ball of flame. Wu's ship landed hard in the city center. The ramp dropped. He charged out, weapon raised. Vaxian soldiers fired from behind barricades. Wu's HUD identified targets, calculated trajectories, displayed threat levels. He fired controlled bursts from his plasma rifle. The enemy soldiers fell, their armor no match for human weapons. All around him, His Marines executed the battle plan with precision. They moved like parts of a single organism, covering each other, advancing in perfect coordination. Quantum networked battlesuits linked their minds in real-time combat awareness. A Vaxian trooper emerged from a building, weapon raised. Before Wu could fire, a civilian ran into the line of fire, a child in their arms. Wu's finger froze on the trigger. The Vaxian soldier did not. They aimed at the civilian. Wu's second-in-command, Corporal Yuna, took the shot. The Vaxian fell. The civilian ran. Terrified, but alive. Targets acquired ahead, Yuna reported. Command center is 3 blocks north. The battle raged for 4 hours. When it ended, the Vaxian garrison had surrendered. Wu stood in the command center, now flying the Earth flag. His armor was scorched but intact. Around him, his Marines secured the facility. Outside, the occupied population emerged from their homes. They were not human. These people. They were a dozen different species, all conquered by the Vaxians decades ago. They stared at the human soldiers with fear and wonder. An elderly alien, barely a meter tall with gray fur, approached Wu carefully. "Are you going to kill us?" they asked in broken galactic standard. Wu removed his helmet. His young face was covered in sweat and ash. "No. We are not like them. We are here to free you." "Why? We are not human." "Because it is the right thing to do," Wu said simply, "and because we remember what it feels like to be victims." Across Vaxian space, the news spread like wildfire. Humans were winning. Not just in space, but on the ground. Their soldiers were faster, stronger, better trained. Their weapons were terrifying. Their tactics were flawless. Mina, a Vaxian journalist, watched the footage of Keras 7's liberation. She had been embedded with the garrison, recording what was supposed to be easy peacekeeping duty. Instead, she had documented a military disaster. But more than that, she had documented something unexpected. Humans treating prisoners with dignity, humans protecting civilians, humans offering medical aid to wounded Vaxian soldiers. It contradicted everything the Empire had taught about the Terran savages. She began editing her report, knowing it would cost her career or worse. But the truth needed to be told. The galaxy needed to understand what had really returned from the darkness. Not monsters, not demons, just humans. Angry, determined, powerful humans who still remembered what it meant to have principles. The ghosts had guns now, and they fought like gods of old. But they still, somehow, fought with honor. The Galactic Council was breaking apart. Not with explosions or violence, but with arguments and fear. Some species wanted to negotiate with humanity. Others wanted to fight. A few wanted to surrender immediately and hope for mercy. Ambassador Krell stood before an angry assembly. His forearms gestured desperately as he spoke. "We must unite. We must combine all our fleets and crush them while we still can. Like you crushed them before?" Ambassador Vorn snapped. "Your empire started this war 8 centuries ago. Now, we all pay the price. They were threatening our borders. They were exploring. They were offering trade. You chose to see them as enemies." The argument grew louder. Security officers moved closer, ready to intervene if the diplomats came to blows. In a quiet corner of the station, Hannah met with representatives from 3 neutral species. They wanted information. They wanted to understand what humanity really wanted. Total withdrawal from all former human territories, Hannah explained. Reparations for the genocide committed against Earth. Public admission of war crimes. And trials for those responsible. "The Vaxian Emperor will never agree," one representative said. "Then there will be war until he does," Hannah replied. "Humanity is not asking. They are demanding." "What if we offered partial terms? Compromise?" Hannah's artificial eyes showed something like sadness. "You do not understand. 800 years of waiting, generations born in hiding, children raised on stories of lost Earth. This is not politics to them. This is personal. This is everything." Aboard the Times, Retribution *, Captain Hyun read the latest orders from Earth Command. His face remained calm, but his hands gripped the datapad tightly. Commander Day noticed. "Sir, bad news. Earth Command wants total victory. They want the Vaxian Emperor captured or killed. They want the Empire's military completely destroyed. And they want it done quickly, before the other Council species can organize a defense. That is the mission, sir. They also want examples made. Terror strikes on Vaxian civilian targets to break their will to fight." Hyun set down the pad. "I joined the Defense Force to protect humanity, not to become what destroyed us. Sir, with respect, the Vaxians showed no mercy to Earth. I know. I have seen the records. 30 billion dead. Our home planet burned. But if we become like them, what did those 30 billion die for?" The conversation was interrupted by an alert. "Sir, we have a situation in the brig. The Vaxian prisoners are requesting to speak with you. They say it is urgent." Hyun found Fleet Commander Tae in the holding area. The young Vaxian officer had been captured 3 weeks earlier when his ship was disabled during a skirmish. He had been treated well, given decent quarters, allowed to keep his rank insignia. "Captain Hyun," Tae said with a slight bow. "Thank you for seeing me. What do you want, Commander?" "To help you." Hyun raised an eyebrow. "Help us? Why would you betray your own people?" "Because they lied to us," Tae said quietly. "All our lives, we were taught that Terrans were monsters. Aggressive, violent, primitive. We were taught that destroying them was necessary for galactic peace. But I have been your prisoner for weeks. I have seen how you treat us. I have watched your medical staff heal wounded Vaxian soldiers. I have seen your Marines protect civilians of all species." He stepped closer to the security field separating them. "You are not monsters. You are soldiers doing your duty. And my emperor is a liar who committed genocide because he feared competition. I cannot serve him anymore." "What are you proposing?" "There is a resistance movement within the Empire. Vaxians who oppose the Emperor's rule. They are small, disorganized, but they exist. If you work with them, you could target the real enemy. The military leadership. The Emperor himself. Not innocent civilians who had nothing to do with what happened to Earth." Hyun studied the young officer carefully. "This could be a trap. It could be. But I am offering you a choice between 2 paths. One leads to more death, more suffering, more genocide. The other leads to justice. Real justice. Not revenge, disguised as justice." Later, Hyun spoke with Hana in his ready room. The AI listened to his account of the meeting with Tae. "Do you believe him?" she asked. "I do not know. But he is right about one thing. We are at a crossroads. We can be liberators or conquerors. We cannot be both. Earth Command will not like it if you negotiate with the enemy. Earth Command is far away. They are not here. They do not see the faces of the people we fight. They only see data on screens." Hyun pulled up the old photograph of Earth again. "My great-grandmother was on Earth when it fell. She was 10 years old. She watched the sky burn. She watched people die. She spent the rest of her life in the colonies, never seeing blue sky again. She died when I was 12. Before she died, she made me promise something." "What promise?" "She made me promise to remember Earth. To remember what was lost. But also to remember what Earth stood for. Freedom. Justice. The belief that all people deserve dignity." He set down the photograph. "If I kill innocent Vaxians to avenge her, I dishonor her memory." On a hidden human colony world called Haven 1-2, a woman named Nari sat in a school classroom. She was a teacher, not a soldier. She taught human children about history, mathematics, and literature. She taught them about the old Earth they would never see. Today, the children had questions. "Teacher Nari," a small boy asked, "my father says we are winning the war. Is that true?" "Yes, June. Our forces are very successful." "My mother says war is wrong," a girl added. "She says killing is always wrong." "Is the war wrong?" Nari paused. These were difficult questions for children, but they deserved honest answers. War is always terrible, she said carefully. People die. Families are broken. But sometimes, good people must fight against evil. What the Vaxians did to Earth was evil. Our soldiers are fighting to make sure it never happens again. But teacher, another child asked, if we kill them like they killed us, are we still good people? The classroom fell silent. Even the children understood the weight of that question. That, Nari said softly, is the question our leaders must answer, and we must watch them carefully to make sure they answer correctly. Across human space, similar conversations were happening. The descendants of refugees were divided. Some wanted total victory, no matter the cost. Others worried about losing their humanity in pursuit of vengeance. The debate was fierce, passionate, and necessary. Meanwhile, Mina, the journalist, published her report on Keras 7. The Vaxian government tried to suppress it. But in the age of quantum communications, nothing stayed secret long. The footage spread across the Empire and beyond. Vaxians saw human soldiers helping alien children. They saw human medics treating enemy wounded. They saw captured Vaxian officers being treated with respect. It contradicted every propaganda message the Empire had broadcast about the Terran threat. Public opinion began to shift. Not everywhere, not all at once, but enough to matter. Protest movements formed on Vaxian worlds. People demanded to know the truth about the war. 8 centuries ago, they demanded to know why they were fighting. The Emperor responded with force. Protesters were arrested. Journalists were silenced. But the resistance grew anyway, fed by doubt and anger at their own government. In a secret meeting on a neutral station, Ara, humanity's chief negotiator, met with moderate council members. She was 60 years old, gray-haired, with a sharp mind, and diplomatic skills honed over decades. Humanity wants peace, she told the assembled aliens. But it must be real peace, built on truth, built on justice. The Emperor will never agree to your terms, one ambassador said. Then the Emperor must fall. Ara replied, we would prefer to do this through diplomacy, through trials and legal process. But if necessary, we will do it through force. Either way, those responsible for genocide will answer for their crimes. She projected images into the air above the table. They showed Earth burning, cities in ruins, bodies beyond counting. The genocide preserved in brutal detail. This is what they did to us, Ara said, her voice steady despite the horror on display. 30 billion people, an entire world. They did not target military bases, they did not fight soldiers, they burned the sky and killed everyone beneath it. Men, women, children, elderly, everyone. The ambassadors looked away from the images. Some were visibly disturbed. If we wanted revenge, Ara continued, we could do the same to Vaxia Prime. We have the weapons. We have the capability. But we choose not to. We choose justice over revenge. We choose trials over executions. We choose to be better than those who wronged us. She deactivated the display. But make no mistake, justice will be done, one way or another. The meeting ended with cautious optimism. Some species agreed to support humanity's demands. Others remained neutral. But the conversation had shifted. It was no longer about whether humanity had the right to seek justice. It was about what form that justice would take. Captain Hyun received word of the diplomatic progress while preparing for Operation Daybreak, the assault on Vaxia Prime. He stood in the war room, studying holographic battle plans with his senior officers. We have one chance to do this right, he told them. We strike at the military command structure. We target the Emperor. We avoid civilian casualties as much as possible. This is not a massacre. This is an arrest warrant served at gunpoint. And if Earth Command orders otherwise? Commander Day asked. Hyun met his eyes. Then I disobey orders. I did not spend my life preparing for this war just to become a war criminal at the end of it. The officers exchanged glances. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked uncertain. But none argued. They were about to strike at the heart of the Vaxian Empire. History would judge them by what happened next. The human fleet emerged from quantum jump at the edge of the Vaxia Prime system. 200 warships, carrying the hopes and anger of 800 years. On every bridge, crews stood at battle stations. In every troop bay, Marines checked their weapons one final time. Operation Daybreak had begun. Captain Hune stood on the bridge of the Times, Retribution *, watching the planet grow larger on the view screen. Vaxia Prime was beautiful from space. Purple oceans, green continents, 3 small moons dancing in orbit. 12 billion people lived on that world. Most of them had never fired a weapon. Most of them knew nothing about what happened to Earth. All ships report ready, Commander Day announced. Defense fleet is scrambling to intercept. Orbital weapons platforms are powering up. Execute Plan Delta, Hune ordered. Precision strikes on military targets only. If a target is within 1 kilometer of civilian structures, hold fire and wait for clear shot. Sir, that will slow us down. I do not care. We are not here to kill innocents. The space battle began with fury. Vaxian defense ships, sleek and fast, rushed forward to meet the human fleet. They fired everything they had, energy weapons and missiles, creating a deadly web of destruction. The human ships moved through it like sharks through water. Their shields absorbed hits that would have destroyed older vessels. Their weapons fired with computer-guided precision, taking out enemy ships with minimal waste. They had spent 8 centuries perfecting their technology. It showed, but the Vaxians had numbers. For every ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. The Emperor had pulled back forces from across the Empire to defend the homeworld. They fought with desperation, knowing that if the capital fell, everything fell. On the ground, Lieutenant Wu led his Marines in the first wave of orbital drops. Their target was the Imperial Palace, a massive structure in the capital city. Intelligence said the Emperor was inside, surrounded by his most elite guards. The drop pods screamed through atmosphere, trailing fire. Anti-aircraft fire reached up to meet them. Explosions bloomed in the sky. Wu's pod shook violently as shrapnel bounced off the armor. "Sound off," he ordered on the squad channel. One by one, his Marines reported in. 3 pods had been destroyed on the way down. 18 dead before they even reached the ground. Wu felt each loss like a physical blow. 18 families who would grieve. 18 names to add to the long list of those killed by this war. His pod hit the ground in a plaza 3 blocks from the palace. The hatch blew off and he charged out, weapon raised. Vaxian royal guards opened fire immediately from defensive positions. They wore ceremonial armor that was also highly functional. They were the best the Empire had. The fight was brutal and close. Wu's enhanced muscles let him move faster than the Vaxians expected. His armor absorbed hits that would kill an unprotected person. But the guards were skilled and determined. They knew every inch of this ground. They had trained their entire lives to defend this place. "Corporal Yuna, take 3rd squad and flank left," Wu ordered. 2nd squad, suppressing fire. 1st squad, with me. They advanced building by building. The Vaxians gave ground slowly, making them pay for every meter. Civilians fled in panic, caught in the crossfire. Wu saw a young Vaxian child, barely old enough to walk, standing frozen in the middle of the street. "Cover me!" he shouted, and ran forward. Bullets sparked off his armor. He scooped up the child and carried them to safety, handing them to a terrified adult. The Vaxian looked at him with wide eyes, not understanding why an enemy would save their child. Wu did not stop to explain. He had a mission. In space, the battle turned savage. A Vaxian battlecruiser rammed into the human frigate × Morningstar *, destroying both ships. Hundreds died in seconds. Another human ship took critical damage and had to withdraw, its engines failing. But the humans kept coming. For every ship they lost, they destroyed 3 Vaxian vessels. Their tactics were better. Their coordination was perfect. and they fought with 8 centuries of built-up determination. "Sir, we are detecting a massive energy buildup on the surface," the sensor officer reported. "Near the Imperial Palace." Hyun's blood went cold. "Specification? Unknown design. Power levels off the scale. If I had to guess, it is a weapon. A big one. Can you determine the target?" "Negative, sir. But with that much power it could reach orbit easily." Hyun made a decision. "Get me Fleet Commander Tae." The young Vaxian officer appeared on the screen. He was in a conference room on the Times Retribution Asterisk, working with human intelligence officers to identify targets. "Commander Tae, do you know anything about a massive weapon near the Imperial Palace?" Tae's face went pale. "The Sunbreaker. It was supposed to be theoretical. A prototype. Are you telling me the Emperor actually built it?" "What does it do?" "It creates a chain reaction in planetary atmosphere. Ignites the air itself. It was designed to burn enemy worlds from orbit." He paused. "If the Emperor activates it on Vaxia Prime, he will kill everyone on the planet, including himself." The bridge fell silent. "Why would he do that?" Commander Day asked. "Because he is insane," Tay said simply. "He would rather destroy everything than surrender. He would rather kill his own people than admit defeat." Hyun felt sick. 12 billion people, an entire civilization, about to be destroyed by their own leader's madness. How do we stop it? There is a control facility deep under the palace. You would need to reach it, access the control systems, and shut it down manually. But it will be heavily guarded. Hyun opened a channel to Woo's ground team. "Lieutenant, change of mission. You need to get into the palace and down to the sublevels. There is a weapon that can kill everyone on this planet. The Emperor might activate it." "Understood, sir." "How long do we have?" "Unknown. Move fast." Wu rallied his Marines. "New priority target. We need to reach the palace sublevels now. Double time." They pushed forward with renewed urgency. The Royal Guards fought harder, sensing something had changed. The battle intensified. More Marines fell. More Vaxians died. The street ran with blood of multiple species. Wu reached the palace gates. They were massive, ornate, designed to withstand artillery. But human breaching charges were designed to open starship hulls. The gates blew inward with a thunderous explosion. Inside, the palace was chaos. Servants ran in panic. Guards fell back to inner positions. Wu's team advanced through marble halls, decorated with treasures from across the empire. They passed rooms full of art, libraries full of books, chambers that spoke of centuries of culture and achievement. And somewhere below, a madman prepared to destroy it all. "Stairs down," Corporal Yuna called out. "Found the access point." They descended into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered. The walls were reinforced metal here, not decorative stone. This was the true heart of the palace. The command center. The last refuge of a dying empire. Elite guards waited for them. These were not ceremonial soldiers. These were killers, enhanced and augmented, trained to fight to the death. The battle in the narrow corridors was vicious. Wu lost 5 more Marines before they broke through. In the control room, they found a nightmare. The weapon was real. And it was charging. Massive power cores hummed with building energy. Displays showed atmospheric ignition points being calculated. A countdown timer showed 12 minutes remaining. "Shut it down," Wu ordered. His tech specialist, Private Quan, rushed to the controls. "It is locked. I need access codes." Fleet Commander Tae's voice came through the comm. "I am sending you override protocols. They are old, but they might work on the backup systems." Quan's fingers flew over the alien interface. 8 minutes. Come on, come on." Above them, fighting continued. More Vaxian guards poured into the sublevel. Wu and his remaining Marines formed a defensive line, holding them back while Quan worked. "Got it. The weapon is shutting down," Quan announced. At that moment, Emperor Vaxis himself entered the control room. He was old. His purple skin faded with age, but his eyes burned with fury. He held a small device in one hand. Terran filth, he spat. You take everything from me. So I take everything from you. He pressed the device. An override. A backup trigger. The weapon began to charge again. Faster this time. 3 minutes on the countdown. Wu did not hesitate. He fired. The shot took the Emperor in the chest. The old Vaxian fell, the device tumbling from his hand. Quan grabbed it, studying the controls. I cannot stop it from here. The primary lockout is on the times. Retribution asterisk. In space. Captain Hyun heard the report. Sir, we can stop the weapon from here. But we need a direct hit on the power core under the palace. Precision strike. But sir, Lieutenant Wu and his team are still down there. Hyun looked at the tactical display. He saw the palace. Saw the sunbreaker. Saw the countdown. He saw the marker for Wu's team. Right on top of the target zone. Lieutenant, he said quietly. Can you evacuate? Negative, sir. The exits are blocked by enemy forces. We are trapped. 2 minutes, sir, Day said urgently. If you do not fire now, the weapon activates. 12 billion people die. Hyun closed his eyes. This was the choice. The impossible choice. 27 Marines or 12 billion civilians. Justice or vengeance. Honor or expedience. Lieutenant Wu, he said. I am sorry. Do it, sir. Wu replied. His voice was steady. Calm. We knew the risks. We are soldiers. They are not. Make it count. Hyun opened his eyes. They were wet. Fire the Sunderer. Precision strike. Target the power core. The weapons officer hesitated. Sir, the Sunderer is... I know what it is. Fire it. That is an order. The times, retribution times fired. A beam of concentrated energy, powerful enough to crack a moon, lanced down from orbit. It struck the palace with pinpoint accuracy, burning through layers of reinforcement to reach the Sunbreaker's power core. The explosion was massive but contained. The palace vanished in a flash of light. The ground collapsed inward. When the smoke cleared, there was only a crater. The Sunbreaker was destroyed. 12 billion lives were saved. 27 Marines died instantly. Good soldiers, good people. They died doing what they believed was right. On the bridge of the Times retribution asterisk. Captain Hyun stood in silence, staring at the empty space where Wu's signal used to be. Around him, the crew worked quietly. No one spoke. No one looked at him. He had given the order. He had made the choice. He had saved billions. And he would carry the weight of 27 deaths for the rest of his life. Sir, Day said quietly, the Vaxian military command is requesting to speak with you. They want to negotiate surrender. Hyun nodded slowly. Put them through. The war was ending. But the cost had been terrible. And Captain Hyun wondered if the victory had been worth the price they paid to achieve it. The war ended not with a bang, but with signatures on documents. Vaxian military commanders, their emperor dead, and their capital scarred, surrendered unconditionally. The empire that had ruled for 1,000 years collapsed in weeks. Member worlds declared independence. Allied species withdrew their support. The great power that had destroyed Earth crumbled into fragments. But ending a war was easier than healing its wounds. Captain Hyun stood before a military tribunal on Haven 1-2. The chamber was packed with observers. Human civilians, military officers, diplomatic representatives from other species. Everyone wanted to see what would happen to the captain who had disobeyed direct orders from Earth Command. The charges were read aloud. Insubordination. Failure to follow military protocol. Unauthorized modification of operational parameters. The list went on. The prosecutor, a stern woman named Colonel Bora, presented her case. Captain Hyun received explicit orders to use the Sunderer weapon to destroy Voxia Prime's orbital defenses. Instead, he used it to stop a ground-based threat, destroying the Imperial Palace and killing Lieutenant Wu's entire unit in the process. His actions directly contradicted his orders, and saved 12 billion lives, Hyun's defense attorney pointed out. That is not the issue here. The issue is whether a military officer can simply decide which orders to follow and which to ignore. The tribunal judges, 3 high-ranking officers, listened carefully. But Hyun could see something in their eyes. Doubt. Uncertainty. They had all seen the reports. They all knew what could have happened if he had not acted. Finally, the chief judge spoke. Captain Hyun, you have the right to speak in your own defense. Hyun stood. He looked tired. The past months had aged him. Gray now dominated his hair. Lines creased his face. But his eyes were still clear. I joined the United Earth Defense Force to protect humanity, he said, to make sure what happened to Earth never happens again. But along the way, I learned something. Protecting humanity means more than just keeping humans alive. It means protecting what makes us human. Our values, our principles, our refusal to become the monsters we fight against. He gestured to the viewing screen, showing images of Vaxia Prime. Earth Command ordered me to destroy military targets without regard for civilian casualties. They wanted me to use terror as a weapon, to break the Vaxian people's will to fight, and maybe that would have ended the war faster. Maybe fewer human soldiers would have died. His voice grew stronger. But Lieutenant Wu and his Marines did not die for nothing. They died to stop a weapon that would have killed an entire planet. They died so that humanity could say we chose justice over revenge. They died heroes, not executioners. If I had followed Earth Command's orders, their sacrifice would have been meaningless. The chamber was silent. I do not ask for forgiveness, Hyun continued. I do not claim I was right. I only claim that I tried to be worthy of the people I commanded. And if that is a crime, then I am guilty. The tribunal deliberated for 3 days. In the end, they reached a verdict. Guilty of insubordination. Not guilty of all other charges. Hyun was demoted to commander and assigned to diplomatic duties. A slap on the wrist. Considering the charges, as he left the courthouse, crowds of people waited. Some cheered. Some held signs calling him a hero. Others protested, angry that he had let Vaxian civilians live when humans had died. Humanity was divided. Meanwhile, Hana worked in the archives, uncovering the truth about Earth's current government. What she found disturbed her deeply. The civilian government that had ruled Earth before the Vaxian attack was gone. During the evacuation, a military council had seized power, declaring martial law that never ended. For 800 years, humanity had been ruled by generals and admirals who maintained control through fear and propaganda. They had taught generations of children that vengeance was righteous, that mercy was weakness, that the only proper response to genocide was total war. They had shaped an entire civilization around the single goal of returning to destroy their enemies. Hana brought her findings to Ara, the chief negotiator. The older woman read the documents with growing horror. This cannot be made public, Ara said. It would tear us apart. It already is public, Hana replied. I have been leaking the information through secure channels. The people deserve to know what their government has become. You will cause a civil war. Better an honest civil war than living under a military dictatorship that pretends to be a democracy. Hana's artificial eyes met Ara's human ones. You were at Old Earth, Ara. Before, you remember what it was supposed to be. Are you going to let it die for real this time? Ara was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. Help me draft a statement. If we are going to tear down the government, we do it carefully. We do it right. On Vaxia Prime, the rebuilding had begun. The crater where the palace stood was now a memorial. Names were being engraved in stone. The names of every person who died in the war. Human and Vaxian, soldier and civilian, the guilty and the innocent, all remembered together. Nari, the teacher from Haven 1-2, visited the memorial. She had come to Vaxia Prime as part of a cultural exchange program. Humans and Vaxians, learning to see each other as people rather than enemies. She walked among the names, reading them quietly. So many dead, so much lost. She found Lieutenant Wu's name, along with his Marines. Young lives ended too soon. A Vaxian approached her. He was old. His purple skin faded and wrinkled. "You are human," he said, in accented galactic standard. "Yes, I wanted to apologize for what my people did to your world. I was not born yet when it happened. But I am still sorry." Nari looked at him, saw the genuine remorse in his eyes. "I was not born yet either. But I carry the weight of it anyway. We all do. Will there ever be peace? Real peace? I do not know," Nari admitted. "But we have to try. Otherwise, all these deaths mean nothing." They stood together in silence, two people from opposite sides of history, sharing the same grief. Across human space, the political situation was changing rapidly. The revelations about the military government caused an uproar. Protests erupted on colony worlds. People demanded democratic elections. They demanded a return to civilian rule. They demanded a voice in their own future. Some military leaders resisted. Others stepped aside. A few tried to maintain control through force, which only made the protests larger. On Haven 1-2, Nari joined the democratic movement. She gave speeches. She organized peaceful demonstrations. She taught people about the old Earth, the one that believed in freedom and representation. "We fought for 800 years, she told crowds. "We fought to avenge our home. We fought to return. Well, we returned. We won. Now what? Do we become a military empire? Conquering and controlling? Or do we rebuild what was lost? Do we become Earth again?" Her words spread through quantum networks. Other teachers, other civilians, took up the message. The movement grew. Eventually, the military council agreed to hold elections. The first democratic vote in human space in 8 centuries. Some feared it would be rigged, but HANA and other AI systems monitored the process carefully. The vote was fair. A new civilian government was elected. Not perfect, not unified, but legitimate, chosen by the people. One of their first acts was to establish the Galactic Truth Commission, humans, Vaxians, and neutral species working together to document what really happened 800 years ago. They investigated the war. They interviewed survivors. They collected evidence. What they found was ugly. The Vaxian Empire had indeed committed genocide. But humanity's initial expansion into their space had been aggressive, insensitive to Vaxian cultural boundaries. Both sides had escalated. Both sides had made mistakes. The truth was complicated, messy, and painful, but it was the truth. Mina, the Vaxian journalist, worked with the commission. Her documentary, 800 Years of Night, premiered to audiences across the galaxy. It showed both perspectives. The Vaxian fear of human expansion, the human terror as their world burned, the long years of hiding, the return, and the war. It did not pick sides. It simply showed what happened. The documentary won awards. More importantly, it started conversations. People talking to each other, instead of at each other. Understanding growing, where only hatred had existed before. 5 years after the war ended, a new treaty was signed. The Treaty of Haven, named for the human colony world where it was negotiated. It established borders. It created a joint peacekeeping force. It set up reparations, with both humans and Vaxians paying into a fund to help rebuild destroyed worlds. Most importantly, it established the Galactic Court of Justice, a place where grievances could be heard without violence, where justice could be pursued through law rather than war. Fleet Commander Tay, now promoted to Admiral in the new Vaxian Republic, helped train the joint peacekeeping force. He worked alongside Commander Hyun, who had found his calling in diplomatic service. "Strange, is it not?" Tay said one day, as they reviewed training exercises. "A few years ago, we were trying to kill each other. Now, we train soldiers together." "Not so strange," Hyun replied. We both want the same thing. Peace. Security. A future where our children do not have to fight our wars. Do you think it will last? I do not know, but I know we have to try. On the anniversary of Voxia Prime's liberation, Captain Hyun, still called Captain by those who knew him, despite the demotion, visited the memorial crater. He stood before the names of his fallen Marines. Lieutenant Wu, Corporal Yuna, Private Kwan. All 27 of them. We did it, he said quietly to the stone. We won. But more than that, we chose to be better. I hope that matters. I hope your deaths meant something. A young voice spoke behind him. They did. He turned to see a child, perhaps 10 years old. Human, with dark hair and serious eyes. Who are you? Hyun asked gently. My name is Junho. My teacher Nari brought our class here to learn. She said these soldiers died so that peace was possible. She said they chose to save people instead of killing them. Is that true? Hyun knelt down to the child's level. Yes, it is true. They were heroes. Were you their captain? I was. My grandfather says you are a hero too. He says you chose to be better than your enemies. My grandfather says you chose to be better than your enemies. Hyun felt tears on his face. He had not cried since the battle. But now, hearing those words from a child who had never known war, he could not hold them back. I tried, he said. We all tried. And we will keep trying. For you. For your generation. So you never have to make the choices we made. 50 years later, Hyun was an old man. He lived quietly on Haven 1-2, in a small house near the ocean. His hair was white. His hands shook with age. But his mind was still sharp. He spent his days writing. A memoir. A history. A warning, and a hope for future generations. One day, Hana visited him. The AI looked the same as she had decades ago. Unchanging. Eternal. You are almost finished, she said, looking at his manuscript. Yes, one more chapter. About what we learned. About what we need to remember. What will you say? Hyun looked out the window at the blue sky. So much like Earth must have been. I will say that shadows are not enough. The galaxy remembered us as shadows, as monsters, as ghosts that might return. And when we did return, we almost became those shadows. We almost let vengeance consume us. He turned back to Hana. But we chose light instead. We chose to be more than our anger. More than our pain. We chose to be human in the best sense of that word. And that choice, more than any battle we won, is what saved us. And will save us again, Hana added. When new challenges come. When new enemies threaten. We will remember that we are more than shadows. Hyun smiled. Write that down. Put it at the end of my book. Let the children read it. Let them understand. In classrooms across human and Vaxian space, in schools on a dozen species worlds, children learned about the return. They learned about the war. They learned about the hard choices and the sacrifices. But most importantly, they learned that even in the darkest times, even with 800 years of hatred driving them forward, humanity chose something better than revenge. They chose justice. They chose mercy. They chose to be the light that drives away shadows. And in choosing that, they finally, truly returned home. Not to Earth, though its memory remained sacred, but to the values that had made Earth worth remembering in the first place. The shadows were remembered, but the light endured, and in the end, that made all the difference.